Welcome to the Go Influence Life podcast, the place for people who want to rise above the noise, stand out from the crowd, and create lasting influence in leadership, business, and beyond. I'm your host, Christian Hansen. I'm the best-selling author of the LinkedIn Top 10 ranked book, The Influence Mindset, the art and science of getting people to choose you. Together, we're going to dive into inspiration, motivation, and application for success and influence. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the power of obstacles and how we all deal with them, but if you're able to deal with them effectively, you're going to come out on top. A few months ago, on a walk, I noticed something that stopped me in my tracks. Next to the sidewalk was a metal pole standing in a patch of grass. It was supporting an adjacent phone pole, but the base of this metal pole was sheathed in a bright yellow plastic sleeve, a protective covering designed to shield the metal from wear and the elements. At first, it seemed like nothing special, just another functional object blending into the background of everyday life. But then I saw it. A small green sprout peeking out from the very top of the yellow sleeve. It had found its way through the tiny gap between the plastic covering and the metal pole, pushing its delicate leaves into the open air. It wasn't bold or flashy, but that's what caught my attention. And to tell you why, let's backtrack a bit. This plant started off just like every other one in the patch of grass, emerging from the ground, spreading its leaves, and reaching for the sun. Somehow, it got stuck in the yellow tube. Sunlight, which used to be everywhere, now only came from a distant point at the end of the tunnel. What a disaster. I don't know if plants have existential thoughts, and if so, I apologize to every house plant I've ever killed. But at this moment, this little plant had two choices: give up or continue upwards. Gratefully for you and me, this plant did what plants do best. It pushed towards the light. Digging deeper with its root for nutrients and stretching further and higher, it worked mostly in the dark for that distant light. After what seemed like forever, in plant time at least, the plant made it. Reaching the top, it could finally soak in all the sun it wanted. But where were the other plants? While this plant had been stretching and reaching in the dark, the other plants were right where they had started. Gratefully for you and me, this plant did what plants do best. It pushed towards the light. Digging deeper with its roots for nutrients and stretching further and higher, it worked mostly in the dark for that distant light. After what seemed like forever, in plant time at least, the plant made it. Reaching the top, it could finally soak in all the sun it wanted. But where were the other plants? While this plant had been stretching and reaching in the dark, the other plants were right where they had started. Nothing changed, and they hadn't grown very much. The yellow tube, though at first a disaster, forced the plant to grow quite literally to a higher level. What does this have to do with success and influence? Have you ever felt like this little plant? Life was great. Everything was going normal until, wham, you found yourself in a yellow tube. Some obstacle, some challenge changed everything, and now the only hope was at the end of a long tunnel. What a disaster. In this moment, you could have given up. You could have just stayed put. But gratefully for you and me, you decided to push forward. Digging deeper with your own roots for nutrients and digging deep within yourself for hidden reserves of strength, you pushed and stretched and pulled and reached and grew, mostly in the dark, for what seemed like forever. But then, one day, you made it. You felt the sun. You spread your own leaves, feeling its warmth once again. But as you looked around, everything looked a bit different. As you were reaching and pulling through your own yellow tube, a lot of people had stayed right where they had started. Nothing had changed, and they hadn't grown very much. Your obstacle, though at first a disaster, forced you to grow quite literally to a higher level, which is what obstacles do. I often tell my clients and audiences that a mile of direction prevents 10 miles of distraction. Obstacles have a unique ability to provide instant clarity on what and who in our lives matters most. In these moments, we realize so much of life is just distractions masquerading as essentials. And in the ensuing weeks, months, and even years, we succeed by building a life of greater clarity, focus, and intention. And the best part is, we get to help others do the same. As I was crouched on my hands and knees taking in the story of the little plant, I looked pretty strange. In fact, someone else walked by and asked what I was doing. I chuckled, pointed, and shared my thoughts as they also bent down to admire the persistence of the plant. Its story now became their story, and hopefully inspired them as it did me. Have you ever been moved and influenced by someone enduring a struggle? How's an obstacle molded you into a better person? Most importantly, who in your life is currently in their own yellow tube, and how can you be a support for them as they reach for the other side? Whatever you're facing, keep pushing, keep stretching, keep pulling, keep reaching, and keep growing. The sunlight is calling. Hopefully, as you use these ideas of pushing through your own struggles and your own yellow tube, hopefully your life can also be changed by the power of obstacles and, more importantly, the lives of people that you serve and care for every single day. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Go Influence Life podcast. My hope is that you have found ways to rise above the noise, stand out from the crowd, and create lasting influence in leadership, business, and beyond. If you have found this to be helpful, please share it with someone else who could use some inspiration, motivation, and application for their own journey of success and influence. Remember, abundance of opportunity never comes from scarcity of thought. And success isn't about being outstanding, it's about standing out. How can you go influence life today? I'm your host, Christian Hansen. And until next time, God bless.